Have you ever wondered why Fred Smith, the founder of FedEx, risked his entire company in a Las Vegas casino? Stay with us to see how that daring move pulled FedEx back from the brink and to discover 3 lessons you can apply to your own business. Today, FedEx depends on over 500,000 employees around the world, ships millions of packages every day across all continents, and boasts a market capitalization north of $40 billion. But it wasn't always that way. In the early 1970s, the future of this logistics revolution hinged on one man, $5,000 in a single weekend in Las Vegas. This isn't an urban legend, it's the incredible true story of how FedEx beat bankruptcy and rose to become the powerhouse it is today. Frederick Wallace Smith didn't have an easy childhood. At just 4 years old, he lost his father and was diagnosed with Perthes disease, a form of juvenile arthritis that affected his hips and blood flow, making even his first steps a struggle. He spent his early years wearing leg braces and using crutches, and was sometimes the target of his classmates' teasing. By the age of 10, however, Fred had fully regained his mobility, and in the process, discovered a fascination with aviation, a passion that would become the foundation of his career. While still in high school, he and a few friends launched the Ardent Record Company, a small garage-based recording studio. What began as a hobby soon grew into a thriving business that still operates today. In 1962, Fred left the studio behind to study economics at University Yale. In his senior year, he wrote his thesis on a radical concept, a fast package delivery service independent of commercial airlines. Back then, shipments traveled in passenger plane cargo holds, leading to frequent delays and unpredictable schedules, a major headache for urgent deliveries like medical supplies or legal documents. Smith's proposal called for a dedicated fleet of cargo aircraft, flying exclusively at night when runways were clear. Packages would be funneled into a central sorting hub and then dispatched by truck, enabling 1 to 2 day delivery, far faster than the industry norm. His professor awarded the thesis only a C, deeming it impractical. Disappointed but undeterred, Fred was resolved to prove the idea could work. After graduating in 1966, Smith was commissioned into the U.S. Marine Corps and spent 3 years, including 2 tours in Vietnam, as a navigator. There, he survived an ambush and studied military logistics firsthand, observing chronic supply delays and learning invaluable lessons about efficient transportation. In his off-duty hours, he often played blackjack and developed a surprising talent for card counting. Little did he know that skill would one day help rescue his fledgling company from the brink of bankruptcy. After leaving the U.S. Marine Corps in 1970, having witnessed the horrors of war firsthand, Fred Smith was determined to build something constructive. At 26, he returned to entrepreneurship by investing in his father-in-law's aviation business, Arkansas Aviation Sales. What began as a simple maintenance and repair shop quickly transformed under Smith's leadership into an authorized aircraft dealership, delivering a dramatic jump in profitability. Despite this success, Fred grew frustrated by constant logistical delays. Parts moved too slowly between facilities, and operations ground to a halt. He remembered his Yale thesis, where he'd already proposed a dedicated overnight air cargo network. The concept was elegant in its simplicity, a private fleet of cargo planes flying at night when commercial runways lay empty, bringing packages to a central sorting hub and dispatching them by truck, all to guarantee 48-hour delivery. Smith calculated that he would need roughly 14 aircraft to launch the system. Although he came from a well-off family and his father had set up a trust fund for him, the capital fell far short of what was required. Undeterred, he pitched the plan to investors, who were impressed by his deep aviation expertise and the enormous potential of his vision. By 1972, he had raised approximately $91 million through loans and venture capital. His first target? Check delivery. Back then, mailing a check could take up to 10 days, and Federal Reserve branches were desperate for a faster solution. Smith secured a pilot contract with the Fed. Overnight document shipments between the central bank and its regional offices, served by a small fleet of light aircraft. This partnership inspired his company's original name, Federal Express. But the Fed abruptly withdrew from the agreement, leaving Smith with the planes, the mounting costs, and the Federal Express brand, a dramatic setback. With the check delivery contract gone, he pivoted swiftly to priority package delivery for businesses and individuals. On April 17, 1973, Federal Express officially launched its air courier service from Memphis, a geographically central location in the U.S. with round-the-clock runway access. In that first night of operations, 14 planes delivered 186 packages to 25 cities, and word of the overnight delivery model spread like wildfire. What began as a private banking service had now become the foundation of today's FedEx empire. But the greatest challenges still lay ahead. Fred didn't yet know that a crisis was looming that would nearly push his company into bankruptcy. In 1973, in the midst of the oil crisis, Fred's plan ran into an unexpected roadblock. The OPEC embargo on the United States sent fuel prices through the roof. Operating costs for FedEx's 14 planes skyrocketed, and daily losses neared $30,000. In just 2.5 months, the company had suffered nearly $29 million in losses. Shaken by the volatility in fuel prices, investors refused to inject more capital, forcing Fred to make drastic cuts. He asked his staff to defer their paychecks, and pilots and drivers charged fuel to their own credit cards in hopes of reimbursement later. With the company's bank balance down to its last $5,000 and a $24,000 fuel bill due Monday morning, FedEx faced the brink of collapse. In a final, desperate bid, Fred knocked on General Dynamics' door seeking emergency funding. But wary of the high risks and economic uncertainty, they turned him away. Dejected and exhausted, Fred found himself in a Chicago airport waiting room, haunted by thoughts of the nearly 400 employees who stood to lose their jobs, the countless nights spent working, and the dream that now seemed so distant. For a moment, he accepted defeat. Federal Express would remain an unrealized idea. Then he recalled the hardships of his childhood, the Perthes disease he had conquered, his Yale thesis, his time in the Marines, and the lessons learned in Vietnam. Instead of giving up, he vowed to secure the necessary funds, no matter the cost. Boarding pass in hand and $5,000 in his pocket, Fred made a fateful decision. He would not return to Memphis. He was headed to Las Vegas. It was his last gamble. Fred told himself, if we're going to lose everything, we might as well go down fighting. So he took the company's last $5,000 and placed one desperate wager. A weekend at the Blackjack tables in Las Vegas would decide whether Federal Express still had a chance. Arriving in Vegas, he walked straight to the Blackjack table. The rules are simple. You try to beat the dealer without going over 21. In the 70s, many tables used only a single deck, giving Fred the edge of card counting, a skill he'd honed during his time in the Marines. With each hand, the tension mounted. It wasn't just $5,000 on the line. It was the livelihood of nearly 400 employees. Though his luck swung from small wins to losses, Fred remained laser-focused, playing with unwavering determination. At one point, his stack swelled to $35,000, but after a string of unlucky hands, he knew he had to quit while he was ahead. He walked away when his total hit $27,000, the exact sum needed to cover the looming fuel bill. He immediately deposited the money into the company account, fully aware it wasn't a long-term fix, but it bought FedEx a precious week to regroup. Instead of returning to Memphis empty-handed, he boarded the plane home with a lifeline and just enough time to reignite the FedEx dream. When Fred returned to the office, his team was speechless. He had just risked the company's last $5,000 at the Blackjack tables. Yet in context, his decision made sense. Without that money, the massive fuel bill would have buried FedEx. He literally had nothing left to lose, and his wager paid off tenfold. Beyond proving he would stake everything for the business, Fred bought himself precious days to negotiate with investors. Within weeks, he secured an additional $11 million in funding, paving the way for FedEx's first profitable year in 1976. Amid the economic uncertainty of the 70s, most airlines and courier firms retreated and tightened their belts. Fred did the opposite. He doubled FedEx's marketing budget and launched aggressive campaigns that put them far ahead of their rivals. Rather than fighting for business in the major cities, where traditional carriers still dominated, he targeted smaller markets with less competition. It was a winning strategy. By 1976, FedEx was delivering 19,000 packages a day and counting corporate giants like IBM and even the US Air Force among its customers. But this meteoric rise brought new challenges, and the next obstacle would come from the most unexpected place, the US government. In the late 1970s, the logistics industry was exploding. Companies of every size were emerging, trucking networks were expanding rapidly, shipyards were booming, and air cargo flights were gaining traction. Yet one major obstacle stood in the way of a true revolution: aviation regulation. Rules that favored the large passenger airlines effectively monopolized heavy freight transport, while upstarts like FedEx were confined to small aircraft, limited to just 7,500 pounds of cargo. Fred Smith realized that, if those weight restrictions were lifted, he could deploy much larger planes and accelerate his network's growth. He launched a strategic campaign, partnering with other small carriers to lobby Congress and the Carter administration in Washington. After years of hearings and negotiations, the Airline Deregulation Act of 1978 was signed, removing the caps that had stifled courier services. Freed from these constraints, Smith took Federal Express public on the New York Stock Exchange that same year, raising fresh capital. The new funding allowed him to expand the fleet and open additional hubs across the country. With legislative freedom and the financial resources to match, FedEx quickly outgrew its early limits and paved the way to global courier dominance. Riding the wave of deregulation and backed by an ever-expanding fleet, FedEx enjoyed spectacular growth in the 1980s. In 1981, it opened its first global hub and quickly established itself as the world's leading air freight carrier. Sadly, on June 21, 2025, the business world lost a true visionary. Frederick Wallace Smith, FedEx's founder and guiding spirit, passed away. Under his leadership, a bold gamble in a Las Vegas casino grew into a logistics empire now valued in the tens of billions. As early as 2019, Fred carefully orchestrated a leadership transition, appointing Raj Subramaniam, an accomplished executive in organizational structure and global operations, as his successor CEO. While his absence will be deeply felt, the succession plan Smith put in place safeguards his vision and keeps FedEx on its course of innovation and expansion. Here are 3 key lessons we can draw from Fred Smith's story. 1. The courage to take calculated risks. Sometimes success hinges on deciding to go all in. Fred's wager of the company's last $5,000 at the Blackjack table bought FedEx precious time and proved to investors that he truly believed in his vision. 2. Innovation and adaptability are the keys to survival. From his Yale thesis proposal to pivoting from check delivery to rapid small package shipping, Fred consistently spotted gaps in the market and reinvented his approach to seize them. 3. Shaping the regulatory environment amplifies growth. By leading a vigorous lobbying effort for air cargo deregulation, FedEx broke free of restrictive weight limits. The 1978 law change paved the way for their global dominance. Thanks for watching. If Fred Smith's story taught us anything, it's that bold risks, relentless innovation, and fighting for a level playing field can turn a crazy idea into a worldwide powerhouse. Which of these lessons resonated most with you? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts.